Hi friends, welcome to the Catch Up, where I, Bryan Sumardi, hosts some cool people, and I get into their backgrounds. This podcast focuses on people who are passionate about health, wealth, art, and creativity. A little background on me. I am a Marine, powerlifter, personal trainer, and just overall curious guy. Well, enough about me. Let's get right into it.
Sumo! Sumo! Let's go!
Welcome back to the Catch Up with Bryan Sumardi, where I meet interesting, cool-ass people and I figure out their backgrounds. Today, I just met Tiffanie from Flight Yoga?
Flight Room.
Flight Room.
Yeah.
I'm horrible with these intros.
It's okay.
Tiffanie, I'm just going to let you do it. Introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Tiffanie. I am a yoga instructor in Seattle, Washington. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah. What do you want to know?
I ran into you in class.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't even the instructor. The instructor
No.
kind of just passed you along to me.
Yeah, she did. She did.
I want to keep her name anonymous because she didn't want to.
Okay.
She didn't want to come, but I guess I could recommend her class for sure.
Yeah.
Flight Room, Seattle.
Yeah.
I
Check
found
it out.
on Airbnb Experience.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's how
That's
I found
really
it.
Cool. You know, we do get a lot of people that come from out of town because
Yeah.
they don't offer aerial yoga a lot of places. You know?
I've only seen it once. Oh, I saw one of my friends do it back in Maryland.
Okay.
But then that was it.
Yeah, it's very hit or miss wherever you go. Like your chances of you finding an aerial studio over like a regular yoga studio, it's gonna be slim to none.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky I found you.
Yeah, especially Sam. Well,
all right, there it is. She said,
Sam is great. Like she really is fantastic, and I feel kind of like just really privileged to be a part of what she is putting into the world. I showed up for a friend who was training to become an aerial instructor, and she was just like, you already know the cues and stuff, so can you just come give me feedback? So I showed up, I started, just hanging out and playing around and giving her feedback, and then eventually Sam asked me if I wanted to teach, and I was like, sure. So I got into the aerial yoga, and I think it's so good. It's a really fun practice. It's good for, accessing a lot of stabilizing muscles that maybe we don't use, when we're grounded 2 feet on the floor, or, it's a good way to stretch out certain muscles and a great way to release myofascia, with the support of the swing and what's the word I'm looking for? The pressure.
like gravity doing.
Yeah, for sure.
Massage
Absolutely.
yourself.
And then, you experienced it. We talked about it, right? Like you're in Shavasana and you're just laying in that hammock. It's no different than just laying in a hammock, like by the water. You're just chilling, you're vibing out, everything feels good. And it's because you have that little bit of pressure to hug you. And there's something really calming about that,
For sure. Like that was very similar to my float experience. And that's something I highly recommend as well. But I want to get into your background. Like you briefly just said, like you started off Instagram.
Yeah,
I
did.
love hearing those kind of stories.
I did. It's so funny. I can remember it literally like it was yesterday. I was standing in the kitchen at work. I used to be a server, and I was like, obviously on my phone, not supposed to be, but I was on my phone, and I was looking at the Explore page on Instagram, and I saw this woman get up on top of a desk, and on her forearms, she got up on top of a desk. She was wearing jeans, high-heeled boots, and she just like puts her forearms on the desk and magically makes her legs just float up in the air. And then it was just like the most graceful and beautiful thing I'd ever seen. And I was like, I should be able to do that. Like, that's exactly where my mind went. I was like, I should be able to do that.
Yeah.
So I was showing everybody at work, like it just blew my mind.
You just got on the tables at work. It's
I waited until I got home. I did wait until I got home, and I didn't start on the table. I started on my living room floor. But I was like, is this yoga? This is not the yoga I recall like my mom trying to get me to do. So I went home and I started immediately with headstand, which is definitely, a ass backwards way, if I'm allowed to say that, of starting the yoga practice. So many people
Really?
step into a studio for the first time, and I had the worst anxiety about that. I practiced at home for over a year.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what I was doing. It was definitely very intuitive. Like, I remember I was practicing that specific move. It's called forearm stand. I was practicing it up against the wall, and I felt like, we call it stacking in yoga. So you feel like the hips stack over the shoulders when you're inverted.
Okay.
And it wasn't like an actual click, but it was like when your mind is like, aha, you know. And I got.
Oh, I thought you meant like a bone.
No, no bones, no bones. We're broken in the process of this discovery, but it was definitely like a very empowering moment, because I realized, like, I had taught myself how to do the one thing that got me to start moving my body. And I was just such a completely different person then too, you know, like I would spend countless hours just being stoned and eating whatever I wanted and going out with my friends every weekend and drinking when I wasn't at work. And I just had like that total food and beverage server lifestyle of just being like, whatever, I got all this money, I'm going to spend it how I want. And I wasn't mindful at all. Like, I definitely just didn't really care about my body the way that I do now. And when I first started, it was definitely all ego, you know, and we talked about that. Like, yoga is all about removing the ego. And it's funny to look back at my experience with yoga, because I did start at home and I started just copying anything I saw on Instagram. And I was like, oh, okay, I can figure that out, you know, and I would figure it out just by looking at pictures. And then it just turned into something else entirely. And I realized, like, I hated my job, and I was like, you know what? Yoga has made me started to feel a lot better. And while it started off as completely ego driven, it turned into something much bigger, to the point where I was like, I got to get out of this. Like, I got to stop doing what I'm doing. I got to go teach yoga. Like, if I can teach myself how to do yoga, I can teach other people how to do yoga.
Yeah.
And so I started seeking out studios, and I was so terrified to go take my first class, because the yoga practice for me.
So you learned everything by yourself.
Pretty much, yeah.
Start taking classes.
Pretty much.
I'm going to teach it too.
Yeah, you can learn anything if you put your mind to it. You know, if you have that kind of like
drive.
Yeah, or that mindset where you have this goal and you're like, I'm going to do it, you know, and you do it. That's pretty much how it works. And so to step into the yoga community, it was just very different. Like, the yoga practice for me is such a personal thing. I remember I was in a relationship, we moved in together, and all of a sudden my practice started to fall to the wayside. And I realized, looking back, it's because I never had the house to myself. And it was such like a private thing for me to kind of dive deeper within, get that little bit of introspection into what was going on internally and maybe energetically or mentally or physically, and just kind of tapping into this other part of myself that I had no idea existed.
Yeah.
And then I found a power yoga studio. It was hot, and at first I hated it, and then I realized that my body started to crave that sweat, like that detox.
It's almost like adrenaline rush.
Yeah, exactly. So it's definitely like, you know, like we were talking about, there's benefits to practicing in the heat, but there's also like there's contraindications that can happen with that. So, you know, it's a good way to open up your muscles. It's a great detox. It's also a really good way of getting your heart rate going. So they say it speeds up your metabolism. I know so many people care about that. But for me, it's more about like the heat is just another added element that makes the yoga practice challenging and really makes you focus.
Okay.
You know?
You gave me so many branches to sprout out of.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sorry. I'm going to stop talking.
No, I love it. I love your storytelling. The biggest thing I want to say, I feel like the biggest impact to you was like the removal of ego.
Yeah.
What made you like understand I have an ego and it had to go away? Or like, how did you even like actual know that was the thing?
So I would say I started practicing yoga in 2014. That's when I started.
Okay.
I was trained and started teaching by 2015. And even then, I was like a total Instagram yogi. And I don't know if you follow any type of Instagram yogi. It's a complete culture that, no, please, it's totally fine. It's a complete culture that started off as really empowering and very much a community that like inspired you and got you to like get on your mat every day. And then it slowly shifted into buy this, buy that, check out this new brand of yoga clothes. And everybody's sponsored now. And it just feels like if you're not making it as an Instagram yogi, you're not really doing anything, because Instagram has really like helped make businesses for people,
Right.
you know, and
creating like a brand for themselves.
Exactly. So I tried to do that for so long, and I was like, why is it not working? Why am I not famous yet? And I just, you know, there were so many things in my life that took place. The relationship, I quit my job to teach full time. So many other things. I left the relationship, and there were just all these little elements that kind of came together that made me realize, like, while I was getting on my mat every day, half of the time it was because I was like, oh, I got to make a post. Oh, I gotta post a photo or a video, even if it's only 15 minutes of yoga. I gotta hashtag yoga every damn day. It's like, sometimes your yoga is sitting on this rooftop being in the sunshine, you know. It's sometimes your yoga is going hiking. It's not always on the mat, and it's not always about moving breath to your, like, movement to breath, you know. It's so much more than that. And
it's like meditation.
It's yoga is the cessations of the fluctuations of the mind. That's one of the first yoga sutras, which is like, I call it like the yoga Bible. And it's definitely about being able to still the mind and understand that there is a greater power outside of yourself, and to be able to connect to that power. And I always tell people, you know, like, there's so much speak on the divine when it comes to yoga and the Yoga Sutras. And I always like to tell people, you know, like, the divine can be outside of yourself, but it can also be inside of you. You know, the most divine essence of your being is the best version of yourself. And we're all working on that. Hopefully.
Define divine in that sense. So, like, it's like the God or goddess in you, like that kind of thing, or
it's honest, like, to me, it's however you want to interpret it. It can be the God or the goddess inside of you. You know, like, if you want to take it to that level, it can be the best I like to think of it as the best version of yourself. The best version of yourself that, like, knows when to take a step back, when to push yourself, you know, just being so mindful kind of every step of the way. And to me, no matter what walk of life that you are on, what that boils down to is living your life with intention.
Okay.
You know, that is my mantra. Like, it's on my business cards. Be the best version of yourself, because it's different for everybody.
Right.
But what it really boils down to is you being so mindful that everything you do is with intention. Okay. You don't mindlessly go somewhere and be like, why did I even do that? You know, it's like, no, you have an understanding. You have this clear picture, and it's something that you witness and see, I think, once you realize that there is an ego and that it has to be removed. So, you know, like, to answer your question, all these elements combined, where my entire life got up, you know, kind of flipped upside down. I quit my job and broke up with my boyfriend of 3 years. My job was for 6 years. Like, I did all of that within a month time span. And then
it's that big turnaround, like, I can't take it.
I would just, exactly. I had met my breaking point, and I just, like, I wasn't happy. And I was giving a lecture on chakras. We talked a little bit about this earlier today, about the energetic body.
Right.
So I like to think of, they're called chakras, and I like to think of it as like the energetic nervous system. There's 88,000 of these points all over your body, from your fingertips, tip of your nose to your toes, all over. Okay. And there's 7 major ones that run up and down the spine. And so, like, different forms of yoga, you know, Kundalini, they do a lot of chanting and lots of, like, gong meditation, and they call them kriyas, like, movements to kind of awake that energy.
Is that like the type of thing, like the
sort of vibration? Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So you feeling that, you know, there's several parts to Om too. I could keep going, but I was giving a lecture on the chakras to a group of teacher trainees, and this was almost a year ago, and we were talking about the throat chakra. And the throat chakra is all about your ability to speak your truth and your ability to listen to others' truth. And as I'm giving this lecture, I realize for the past 2 years, I had been denying my truth, or what we call your dharma, you know, your path to life. And when I realized that, it was kind of really hard to digest, because I had essentially, like, I'm all for not blaming any other person on a situation. Like, you need to take full ownership of your shit. So, like, for me, like, I could have easily stepped away from that relationship at any point. I could have easily left that job the second it started making me unhappy. Right. But there were all these other ties that were holding me back. And so being able to step out of that and then realizing how much stuff I had put myself through and then how much stuff I had to get over, that's when I started to get deeper into the yoga philosophy and started to realize like, oh shit, I was doing yoga for the wrong reason for like years. And so it's been a really, really incredible journey. And yoga for me has helped me find that best version of myself. It's helped me define what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also helped me kind of remove my ego and live my life with intention and purpose. And that's like, I feel like that's all you can ever ask for. Even if you don't know where you're going in life, just be mindful through the process.
That's harder than it sounds.
Oh, absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
One thing, I mean, for me, like the reason why I kind of realized my ego, I read a book. I literally read a book.
What book did you read?
It was Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday.
Okay. I'm going to have to look into that one.
Yeah, because that book specifically got into like all the historical figures, like the Malcolm X. That was the biggest one that hit me hard that I kind of recite.
Yeah.
And more like the big entrepreneurs for like starting off like the Rockefellers type of thing. People who had like random jobs, who were like paper mill boys, just regular industrial jobs, and it was like, I gotta do something else, and they kind of had that breaking point, or showing how it breaks down in 3 parts.
Yeah.
But then I completely forgot right now because I know
okay.
it just impacted
if it comes
me.
back to you, just tell me.
Because I want to see if I can explain it though.
Sure.
It's like you have the will, and that's like to you aspire. Aspire is the biggest first one.
Okay.
So you aspire to do something great.
Okay.
And then the second part is failure. No matter what you do in life, at one point you're going to fail.
Sure.
And then the last part, I want to say it's will, but I want to say it's resilience as well.
Sure.
Because once you fail, you have to pick yourself up to keep moving forward. And I know there's like a lot of other books by like Jim Rohn. I interviewed one of my guests.
Oh, yeah.
Seasons of Life.
Okay.
Where if you think of crops or agriculture, did I say that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean,
like
I'm a
crops.
yoga instructor, not a farmer, so I think that sounds right to me.
Well, anyway, it was like the winter time where everything's drought. You don't make any crops, so you have to harvest, or you have to live off the stuff you did in the summer. Then the spring comes, then things start looking good. Summer is really good, and then you kind of fall back into that cycle. You fall into autumn, fall.
Yeah.
And then you start losing. Then you hit like a depression where winter comes back, and it just happens again and again and again.
Sure.
And once I kind of realized that cycle, that what kind of broke me, like, okay, ego, I'm going to always have a good intuition about whatever I'm doing, but then there's always going to be a chance I fail. And then it kind of put me in the perspective that I'm only a little piece into this giant world, universe, or everything else bigger than me.
Yeah.
So I just got to do my part and make whoever around me is good.
You got to make your ripples.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I really resonate with what you're saying. And I find that so amazing that you kind of just like realized it off of a breaking point.
I mean, everybody has their aha moment. That's kind of what we call it in my yoga community, is like, aha, like for me, it was a breaking point. For others, it's a book, for other people, it can be anything really,
Well, do you think that yoga is a philosophy?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yoga. So this is part of my whole, like, changing my entire life around and kind of making these changes for myself. It was a lot. It was a lot to process. And I thought I had, like dealt with a lot of things internally, and it turned out I didn't. And so like all of this stuff was starting to come back up. And so for me, what I did was I just decided to get really heavy into the yoga philosophy. It started back in November was when I finally like completely removed myself from the situation that I was in and moved back to the city. And it was a refreshing experience, and it was great for like the first 2 weeks. I was like, yeah, I'm back to myself. I feel so good. And then all of a sudden, like, it's just straight plummet, you know? And I was like, what is happening right now? Like, what is going on? And so, you know, like, as a yoga teacher and with my fellow yoga teachers, we always make jokes about like, oh, your chakras are probably out of whack, you know, like you need to get your shit synced up. So
you kind of get that just vibe talking to another yogi.
Yeah, you know, just like chakra, like not necessarily like if we're saying something's off or, you know, and there are definitely points of your life where you can attribute physiology to what's happening literally in your life and the things that you're going through, you know, like, for example, if you travel a lot, you know, and you haven't been home for a long time. So like, I'm going to try to keep this as light as possible, but basically like it can mess with your digestive system, right? And your digestive system also kind of has to do with like the lower 3 chakras. So your sensation of feeling grounded and safe and at home.
Really?
So it's like, it's really fascinating stuff. And I swear by the chakra system, like it's so fascinating. And so I made that joke. I was like, well, obviously like I just moved. I'm struggling to feel at home in my new lifestyle. I haven't been eating well. I always kind of feel like crap. You know, like it was just, there was a lot of things happening physiologically in my body. And I was like, okay, chakra tune up, you know? So I decided to, as always, share my practice with my students. So I did a 7-week chakra series because there's 7 chakras. So we went through the chakras. And then after that, I realized I was like, I need to go deeper. And so they have what is called the 8 limbs of yoga.
Okay.
And
what are those 8?
The 8 limbs. Oh,
like
man. That's
2, 4.
No. No.
It's different.
It's different. So 8 limbs is, it's like a structural breakdown of the yoga practice. It is the philosophy behind why we practice yoga.
Okay.
So you have the first 2 limbs are the yamas and the niyamas. So you have, basically it's like morals and ethics to live by, right? How you treat the world and people around you.
Yeah.
And then the niyamas are going to be more like how you treat yourself, you know, like what are you personally doing to observe the divine, you know, within yourself, outside of yourself, whatever it is. And then, oh my God, it's been so long.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it just keeps going. So like you start off with that, and then there's like discipline, self-study is one of my favorite ones. You know, it just keeps going. And essentially what it does is it takes you to enlightenment or nirvana or whatever you want to call it. Samadhi is what they call it in yoga. We talked a little bit about this today. It's like that feeling where you kind of like, you're so connected with everything that's going on inside of you, everything around you, that you kind of lose track of yourself. It's almost like an out of body experience. You lose track of time. It's like, you wake up and you're like, whoa, you know, and you've got like this blissed out feeling,
the
like
aha moment,
times
like 10. But
exactly.
then you're like, I learned something. Too.
Exactly. And everything just feels right with the world, even if only for like those 2 to 5 minutes, you know? And so that's kind of like what the 8 limbs is all about. And I started teaching on that. I started a blog. I would challenge myself to write about what I was teaching every week.
Where did you learn all these like courses and stuff? Like, I understand that you kind of just willed your way through it.
I mean, you definitely learn. So I did teacher training, you know, like I went through a certification. I went through 2 certifications actually. And so I learned a lot from those trainings. But as with anything, if you really want something out of whatever it is that you're going for, you have to go deeper.
Yeah.
And so I learned a lot of this stuff on my own. And it was really, really cool to go really deep into the philosophy, share it with my students to the point where they're like, oh, what's next? I'm so excited. I'm like, I love you guys. Because for me, like it all started as a personal journey. And now it's a shared one, you know? And with the 8 limbs, it was just a really cool way of showing people like, you can come into this space and you can do yoga, but without the philosophy, it's not yoga. Without the mindfulness, it's not yoga. It's calisthenics. You're moving your body with breath. Good for you. You know, like if you're not trying to zen out at least a little bit in the process, you're probably missing the point. It's like when I see people check their freaking Apple Watches in a yoga class, I'm like, go home. No, really, stay, but stop checking your Apple Watch. You know, like... It's
wild.
it is. It's
No. So I'm gonna admit that I was under the stereotype that like most more yogis
yeah.
were those like hippies, kind of like too zen, and like I can't relate. Like being on the East Coast,
Yeah.
being all like hustle and trying to like just move from the next place to the next place.
Yeah.
But then I think I learned being more self-aware of like my own self, my own body, and how I do things.
Yeah.
I kind of became that myself. So I'm trying to bridge the gap for someone who's like ignorant as how I was.
Yeah.
To like us. There has to be someone in between, where like, where's that happy medium that kind of like, hey, it's okay. Or I'm like a businessman, but I also practice yoga, but I'm not super.
Yeah.
zen,
Well, yeah, for
That makes
sure.
sense?
I mean, the thing is there's going to be stereotypes no matter what community you're looking at. You know what I mean? Hippy dippy, like whatever you want to call it. There are going to be stereotypes. And there are some people that absolutely fit into that category.
Yeah.
Like, it's just one thing that I have learned about coming here, right, is like from the Southeast to Seattle, Washington.
You said you from Florida to South Carolina.
Yeah, and that's kind of where like I grew up and was raised, and went to college and even hung out for a little bit after. And then I moved here, and I was like, oh, there's a lot of stuff that's different, you know, and I can't really stereotype people the way that. God, I feel terrible saying that, but like I can't stereotype people here like I could back home because, well, first of all, I had been back home for 20 years at least, you know, so it was like I had like this lay of the land, and now here, you know, I've been here for 6 years, but I still find myself constantly being mind blown by the things and the people that I come into contact with that kind of shift my perspective. And being open-minded in that way, I think obviously is going to let you lose the need to stereotype things. But there is a stigma when it comes to yoga. You're right. It's like, I have to be flexible.
Right.
It's like, I'm not spiritual enough for that. Like, I don't got time for that, you know? And it's like, the thing is you have time. You just have to make it.
Right.
And
it's like priorities.
And I've definitely, like, I teach at a yoga studio that all A-type personalities, when I throw something creative at them or I make them hold a posture longer than like, you know, I'm like, why are y'all looking at me like I'm crazy? This is good for you. You know what I mean? Like, there are totally like A-type personalities out there that are hustle. Yeah. And so for me, I like to compare yoga to church in a weird way because without the spiritual aspect, because it is a come as you are practice, you know, like I said, like I showed up to the practice in my living room, you know, probably really stoned and with a pizza in the oven, you know what I mean? Like that was my life back then. And then it changed me. And it was like, it's like you start to see all of these shifts in your life. And, you know, I've had this conversation with a few other people, so I'd like to, you know, speak for the majority, but like you take yoga and you start to notice all the effects that it does and it has on you, because yoga is a practice that works through you and in you. Yeah. And it's something that you work on physically, but like I said, yoga is a philosophy. It's not necessarily like a physical workout. It can be. Yeah. But so many people will tell you you're not practicing yoga without the philosophy behind it. And I think if you show up as you are with an open mind and just be like, you know what, I honestly, it's like, I'm trying to think of the best answer. Experience with other people, you know, like you talking to me and hearing my story is probably like a little bit more eye-opening for what you thought of the standard yoga person, you know?
For sure.
And I think that there's a lot of different types of people out there practicing yoga, for sure. I think the Canadian Prime Minister does yoga, you know? Like, it's just like all these people that are very influential, they do yoga, and it's because of the mindfulness. Like, I've had students, oh, I'm coming to yoga because I was recommended to my doctor. I had an injury. So, like, if you have somebody with an injury, like we talked about this a little bit earlier,
rehab,
like,
in a way.
Yeah, it's like rehabilitation. And even if you are a strong yogi and you get hurt, there's still something to learn from that injury. You start to learn how to be more aware of maybe that part of your body, or maybe it forces you to work on something else.
It's kind of like having a positive mindset. And to me, it relates to that cycle.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to be at your complete high, being like a strong yogi, but then an injury happens. It's almost like inevitable.
That's the winter.
And that's the winter, yeah.
You're like, oh,
yeah,
super depressed.
But then somehow, if you keep the right mindset, you'll get right back into it.
Exactly.
Well, I want to get deeper into
Yeah.
it. So this is a question that's like pondering in my head right now.
Sure.
Have you heard of like the word tribalism and like creating tribes, and that's how we were like raised to be?
I mean, I feel like I've seen memes that say love your tribe
Yeah.
and things like that. It makes sense, you know, like as humans, I think that we thrive on connection, like
we're social beings type of
you
thing.
know, and again, I'm not trying to like take it to that level, but if you were
I
like
am.
somebody,
Well,
let's say you were somebody who believed in God, right? God created man, and then he created woman. He did not create man to be alone. There were animals before the woman even got there, you know? So it's like humans thrive on connection, and I don't care what anybody says. You are not an island. Everybody needs help at some point in their life. Right. Everybody needs somebody to hear them. Everybody needs somebody to speak to.
Yeah.
I'm all for that. And I will tell you, I lived in Seattle for 6 years. And it wasn't until I started doing yoga that I found friends that I felt like, oh,
yeah,
these are the friends that I want.
And that's what I was trying to get into, is like, you found your tribe. And in a way, you kind of created your own tribe by starting your own practice, meaning like you have your own students.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I've got my regulars. They're pretty great.
Because like they love you in a way, like, I don't want to say like in a big word like religion, but it's like they idolize you in a way. Could you say that?
Yes,
almost?
And you know, I just had
like
this.
They look for you like, oh, what's next? Type of thing.
Yeah, I just had this thought the other day, actually. It's so funny that you use the word idolize, because I realized, like, when I first started doing yoga, there were all these yogis, these famous yogis that I was I was so obsessed with. I was like, I have to tell you, like, I honestly don't follow that many yoga people on Instagram anymore, because like I said, they're just trying to sell me products.
Yeah.
They're all sponsored, and very few of them, I feel like, put out into the universe what I need. And as somebody that uses social media in that sense, like, I think it's really important to make sure that even though the algorithms are what they are, like, I think it's important to try to take as much control over what you put into your mind and into your soul.
Yeah.
And so when I like look back and think about how I used to idolize these people, you know, I just saw another girl's Instagram, and she was like, you know, fangirling, taking a photo, like, it was such a privilege to spend the weekend. It's like, that's really cool, but at the same time, like, are you feeling privileged because of the knowledge that you learned, because you think that person is really great, or is it because, like, look at me, I'm with this person
type of thing?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, it's so funny to me how we idolize people, because if anything, we should create a version of ourselves that we idolize.
Yeah.
You know, like, we should be our own idol.
Something like loving yourself type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And being the best version of yourself. And, you know, there's going to be times, like you said, there's seasons, right? Yeah. I literally just went through one. I went through probably the darkest winter of my life. And before yoga, you know, like we talked about this earlier. Before yoga, I had no body awareness. I didn't do anything ever. I was like, I went on an occasional hike and would smoke a joint at the top and then pant my way down. Like, it was really bad. And when I started doing yoga, it was like, oh, there's this body that I have. Oh, I can make it feel good.
Yeah.
You know, and that was really empowering. So when I suffered from, or I still have it actually, it's called costochondritis. Okay. It is inflammation of the cartilage that connects the sternum and the ribs.
Okay.
I don't know, it could be physical stress, it could be mental stress. There was a lot of other elements happening at that time when it started to flare up.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what was wrong with it. And the yogi's mindset, I can yoga my way through it. I can make myself feel better through yoga. And I just made it worse. And so I went to see somebody, and they were like, you have to stop doing yoga. And like,
is it because like you're overstretching or something?
Yes. And I was just adding insult to injury, essentially, you know. And it was the hardest thing somebody to listen to. Someone tell me that I can't do yoga. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's how I found myself. Like,
Yeah.
I can't not do yoga. I teach yoga, you know.
That was like recently?
That was recently. That was the chest pain started in February, and because I tried to push through it, my back muscle started to atrophy, and it hurt to sit up straight.
So like 4 months ago?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I'm literally like, I'm
wild.
getting into my my spring.
Okay.
As the seasons change, literally right here, right now. Like, I'm definitely starting to feel better in my body, and it's just, like I said, it's a crazy journey to go through, you know. But like that injury allowed me to dive deeper into some other stuff that obviously I needed to
address
work on. Yeah, and it's just, I don't know. I'm finding that the injury is what creates more awareness is also really empowering in a sense. And while I was trying absolutely, like, with all of my heart to not compare myself to the best version of myself, I was still doing it and trying to figure out a way to get out of that. And you're right. It's
overcome the obstacle.
Yeah. And it's like, but the thing is sometimes there's not overcoming. Sometimes there's not going around it or going under it or over it. Like, you have to go through it. And that was something that's something that like I realized. I was like, I think that's from a children's book, but I'm pretty positive that sums up my entire life right now. Like, you have to go through it.
Yeah.
And it makes you so much stronger in the end. And I definitely think, like, I already forgot where I was going with this, but injuries, overcoming it. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I feel like things are on the up and up for me now. I still experience a little bit of chest pain, but I'm able to practice yoga again. You know, and just kind of realizing that, like, some things you can push them all you want, but some things aren't meant to be. And so with that, you know, like, I decided, like, okay, I'm running my body into the ground. Now I have to stop teaching full time.
Okay.
So,
well, speaking on that, can you get into, like, I don't want to say the, like, repercussions. It's almost like the issues that you kind of went through other than, like, the injury. More like for me with weightlifting, like, if you do the wrong movement in a bad form, you could tear something.
Yeah.
Like, what's the downfalls or downplays of yoga?
Well, like I said, if you're practicing in heat, one of the contraindications is you can overstretch yourself because the heat opens your muscles up. And if you don't have that awareness, you're probably going to overstretch yourself. And you might not tear anything, but you're definitely going to be so sore that you're not going to want to move the next day. I've experienced that.
Wait, do you think that it's you should have, like, gradual, like, soreness?
I think it's important to introduce people to the heat slowly.
Well, no, just in yoga in general, because I know, like, if I told someone to work out who's never worked out, like, for 20, 30 years of their life, work out 7 days a week. You'll be good. Like, they'll be done. They'll stop, like, the next week.
And I've learned that in my own body. The second I was like, I'm cleared to do yoga.
Yeah.
I went hard. And
every day.
Literally within a week, my chest pain flared up so bad that I couldn't, like, turn my wheel to drive. Mm-hmm. Like, I couldn't make a left turn because it would cause pain.
Yeah.
And any type of rotation, I was like, this is what I get for just pushing the pedal to the metal. So it is, like, you definitely, if you've never done yoga before, I would say definitely take your time easing into it.
What would you like your initial recommendation? Like, go to class once a week? I don't know. Twice a week type of thing?
Don't do it just once a week. Do it more than that. I would say 2 to 3 times a week.
Okay.
You know, have you ever lifted and then you get up the next day and you're like, you go to move something and you're so sore that you just kind of laugh at yourself because you know you did that to yourself?
I haven't done that in a while, to be honest. Just because, like, I feel like I found my, like, my awareness point. Like, I know if I lifted something, that instant, like, I fucked up. I pushed myself way too hard that day. And it was probably because, like, one of my boys was there and we kind of just, like, edged each other on. It's like,
it can happen.
Put on another 10 pounds, put another 20 pounds, another 40 pounds. And then, like, I got it, but then I wrecked my body for the rest of the week.
Yeah, I've definitely, like, been so excited that, you know, like, and this was something I used to do all the time. Oh my God, like, trying to capture the perfect, and this is why, like, I think Instagram is great to a certain degree as far as inspiring people through the yoga community, but it's also harmful because I would try so hard to capture the perfect
photo.
photo, the perfect video. Videos were where I would start injuring myself because I would like go to do a drop back and then I was like, oh, that didn't look right. The frame wasn't right. I would go to do another drop back. Oh, that wasn't right. And these are back bends, mind you. I'm like messing with my spine. So it's like, you know, I wake up the next day and I'm so sore and I'm just like, I can't do back bends for a few days, you know? And it's just like, the thing is yoga should never be painful.
Okay.
And that's what I like to tell people is like, I actually did a whole series on back bends. I was like, you guys, part of the reason you think back bends suck so much is because you don't do them enough. And if you do them more, it's going to feel better in your body. Back bends are so good for you. Oh my God, they promote more blood flow to the heart. They promote more oxygen to your lungs. Like they're really good for you, you know?
But that just sounds counterintuitive what we were just talking about. So
Well,
if you don't do it enough, it sucks. You do it too much, it super sucks.
Well, there's a word we use in yoga called balance. And it's all about that balance, right? So like if you've never done yoga, obviously don't go 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Don't go once a week because you're not building muscle memory, right? And sometimes you're a little sore, but what you need is more yoga to kind of open the muscles back up because they're so tight. It's no different from like you going into a tropical area, right? And you're like, oh, everything feels so good. You know, the heat's got you all loose.
But I feel like because
you go back to Maryland and you're like,
freezing
and you're
cold.
tense and you're tense all the time because you're trying to warm your body.
Yeah.
And so it's that balance.
I want to say like to some. I was talking with Sam.
Yeah.
Like balance isn't necessarily an equilibrium of like this is 50%, this is 50%.
Oh no.
Some people can be like 25, 75. But this is balance for them.
For everybody's different.
It's like what people normally talk about, like play to work, the balance of that. Some people really like to work at their jobs.
Yeah. I'm like you. What you were talking about earlier, like when you go on vacation, you can't just be still.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, no, I can't. I'm the same way.
Like,
I have the worst time sitting
laying
down.
on a beach. I'm like, okay, what's next?
Yeah. Are we good? Like, are we gonna go swimming? You know, like, yeah, for sure. I'm with you on that. Everybody is different, right? And so the thing is that for me personally, I have learned how to create a practice or shapes within my body that feel good all the time. And so as an instructor that has that creative freedom to bring that to my students, I'm always trying to break these stigmas, these urban myths. Like, why would you not practice with props? They're just creating more space. Literally.
Wait, props as in?
Like yoga blocks. You know, if you put blocks underneath your hands, it's going to be way easier to step through into a lunge. You know, it's just, it's kind of like more technical stuff that we're getting into. But there is a balance and not overdoing it, between not overdoing it and doing it too little.
Yeah.
You know, like if you only do back bends once a month, which is often, you know, again, there's definitely going to be commonalities when you go to yoga classes. Like some people are going to always throw a back bend in, some people aren't.
Yeah.
And so the chances of somebody getting a back bend practice in, let's say twice a week, is going to be very rare. And that's why they're like, oh God, not wheel pose, you know, and I'm like, get up there. And I care so much about my students and how I want them to experience yoga the same way I've experienced it, that I really put my all of my energy, all of my heart, my physical body into
You've
it.
Committed to it.
I've committed. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Me and yoga, we're like.
But I think the hardest thing from a teacher perspective is teaching that to students. Because like I think in class today we were doing that. We were getting into the shavasana.
Yeah.
Like where you just lay down in the silk or the thing, rope,
silk, hammock, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Swing.
But then like this was woman next to me, like she was just scared to somersault basically.
Yeah.
And then I think Leslie came over and helped her. And just like, it's okay, just go into it. It's that commitment is like that's one thing a concept that's really hard for me to teach. I
mean, you have to. I would say, don't worry.
Like a small friend too.
Yeah, well, don't worry about teaching commitment. Worry about teaching your experience.
Okay.
You know, like from the thing is people want to know that it works.
Yeah.
You know, they want to know like, okay, commitment. Like, what am I going to get from that? And you'll be like, well, here's my story.
Yeah.
If that doesn't resonate with you, let me hook you up with this dude that I know. He, you know, like this is how he did it. You know, and it's just. For me, that's what I'm about. I'm about communicating what I've experienced in my yoga practice and how I continue to experience my yoga practice. And I feel like that resonates really well with my students because I'm coming from a very personal level but also maintaining like, you can do this. I remember I was teaching a workshop once on arm balances, and we were doing it's called flying pigeon, and you're on your hands, and you have like your legs are like this, so you're balancing on your triceps.
Okay.
And one leg goes back, like it lifts completely off.
Okay.
I'll show you later, but I was demoing it, and I was like, you guys, if there's one thing I'm going to tell you right here, don't be afraid. Fear will stop you from doing anything and everything. And if you tell yourself that you can't do it, the body can hear you. And I had a girl who
said the same exact things. Like, I know how it's done. I'm too afraid to do it.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is like, if you can understand that there's that barrier, then it's more easily broken.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't realize that it's fear that's what's stopping them.
Right.
And I had a girl that got her leg back up for the first time, and she had a really strong practice. She was one of my friends, and at the end I was like, I'd love to hear your thoughts, your feedback, come talk to me at the front desk. And she came out and she was like jumping up and down, so excited. She goes, I got my leg up. And I was like, what did you do? What was the cue? Like, tell me so I can keep using it. And she goes, well, you told me not to tell myself that I couldn't do it. And so I told myself I could, and I just did. And I was like, the mind is an amazing thing.
That is awesome.
It's so powerful, and learning how it goes back to that age old thing of like mind over matter.
Yeah.
If you can take control of your thoughts, you can change your entire world.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about yoga. And that's what I convey to my students more than anything. Like, I can't force somebody to commit to a yoga practice.
Right.
I can't. If I could, I'd have them in my class every week.
But then do you ever have those students who are like, I'm so determined to do this. I'm so determined to be like a yogi. I'm so determined to be, to get this pose or whatever?
Oh, yeah.
Or do you think that's more of the ego thing? Because they want to do it for the wrong reason.
It's both. I think you experience this, right, with lifting weights. It's like, when you get that
high, it's like
not necessarily the high. I'm trying to. I don't lift weights. Not the competitiveness. Like when you hit a goal. Yeah. Say you have like you
hit a PR, like a weight PR, personal record.
Okay, yeah, PR. I'm like, what does PR stand for? Okay, good to know. Good to know. So you hit a PR.
Yeah.
That you've been working on, and you hit it. How good do you feel after?
You feel awesome until you realize there's more to go. I know I can push more.
That's what yoga's all about.
Yeah.
The practice is never over. You know what I mean? And it's always evolving. It's always shifting. We are always evolving. We are always shifting. That's why I love yoga, because it changes with you.
It's ever evolving. It never stops type of thing.
Exactly. So when people come up to me and they're like, I just really want to learn chin stand. And I'm like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
And I'll sit there and hang out with them after class and kind of workshop them through it. I used to teach all of that stuff in yoga, and now like I would rather have a well-rounded practice and have somebody stop them in the middle of their practice and be like, okay, watch me demo this, and then you do it. If people want to do that, I'm going to figure out a way to make them stronger and build up to that in a class without demoing it myself. But I used to demo all the time, and people would, come out like, oh, I just want to get it. I want to get it. I want to get it. And I think there is ego with that, but it's not necessarily for the wrong reasons. It's like they did something really cool with their body, and now they're like, okay, what's next? And it made them feel good,
Yeah.
Because like I said, it's pretty powerful when you realize that you can support your own weight, and not just figuratively, but literally. Like when you can put your hands down on the ground and float your feet up into the air, I don't care how little of an ego you have, you're going to feel like a badass. You're like, I just did that.
Hell yeah.
I'm like the Jackie Chan of yoga, like it's amazing. And I think, when we do good things for our body, there's nothing wrong with feeling good about that.
Right.
And I think that's where a lot of the students that I see come at me with like they want to know, because they've seen it in class and they think it's really cool and they think they can be able to do it, but they don't know how.
Yeah.
And I just give them the tools,
For that perspective, you said for the students you teach, did you say like you only teach in Seattle, or you taught other places?
Yeah, I like I said, I was just such a different person even before I moved to Seattle. And when I moved to Seattle, I was still kind of following in those same like party, go out every night, not ever take care of my body, until I started doing yoga. And then all of a sudden, like, getting upside down gave me literally a different perspective, because I was like, well, I can't eat a ton of food and then get upside down.
Yeah.
So, like, I guess I got to start eating better. And then all of a sudden, like, my body started craving better foods.
Yeah.
And I dropped, like, 30 pounds. And I was like, hey, you know, like, all of a sudden I had this confidence. And,
Right.
it was completely egotistical. Like, I look back at photos of myself and I was like, you looked good, but you also had a lot of ego. You know, like, it's human. We all have egos.
Right.
And I think it's a beautiful thing when you can get to that point, no matter what gets you there, to realize, like, I'm allowed to have ego every once in a while, but for the most part, it's cool if I just set it aside.
Balance.
Balance.
Like letting that.
Exactly. I mean,
out.
like, you have to have, like, when I went into this job interview that I just did, you know, like, I had to have ego. I had to go in and be like, I look good. I am good. I got the right work ethic. Hire me, you know, and I got the job. And it's just like, I believe that you can manifest things through the power of your thought and through the power of your mind, and committing to believing that you can. It's not necessarily committing to the practice. It's committing to the idea that you can commit to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I heard it's like a quote, like, confidence isn't just like the belief from like others. It's like confidence is the belief like in yourself.
Yeah.
From more, I don't know, just like an intrinsic or just introspective feeling. That you can do it by yourself. Because I think there's another quote that I really like hit me hard by someone I heard on Instagram. Actually, it was like, I am not what you think I am. I am not what I think I am. I am what I think you think I am.
Okay.
But then that's like the perspective of I only take in what from society's standpoint of how I feel.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. You are essentially like a projection of all this stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And like, that's why I love yoga too. I mean, like, God, I can just keep going on about why I love yoga. But for me, like, yoga has taught me that there is a projection, there is a stigma, there's all these things that go into making us who we are.
Yeah.
So it's important to take as much control of that as you can, because the hardest, it's like, you want to talk about quotes? What is it? The hardest thing to do in life is to simply be yourself. You know, but it's true though. It really is, to like own who it is that you are and find empowerment in that. And, you know, sometimes it comes with that empowerment you can find through physical activity. You can find through yoga. You can find through accomplishing small tasks. Like, if you're a to-do list person, oh my God, I don't know a single to-do list person who actually ever crosses everything off their list. It just keeps adding on, you know? And it's like, when they get that, you know, they feel really good. When they check everything off, are you not a to-do lister?
Maybe. I mean, I
imagine it feels good to have that freedom. I'm a to-do lister.
Okay. I mean, I make a to-do list every like morning.
Yeah.
Especially like on my Monday through Friday job. But then it kind of just gets done and I'm like, okay. I do it almost
you make it seem so easy.
I guess. Like, I don't know. Because it's like, from being in the military too, it's like I kind of know my week in advance. So I know, all right, if I'm going to be in the field for the next 5 days, then all right, I got to pack for this.
So like that structure, you're saying that like that structure was kind of ingrained in you.
Yeah.
And so that is necessarily not as much of a challenge as it is for you as it is for some people.
Right.
You know, like, I definitely have never grown up with that kind of structure. Like, my parents were like, do whatever you want. We love you. We support you. You know, like, I did music. I did art. I did music again, and now I teach yoga.
But then music is also like that too, because you always have your like 4-note bar type.
I mean, I don't read music. I taught myself how to play guitar and ukulele. You know what I mean? And it's just like, I taught myself by looking at chords and looking at the fingerings and being like,
all right, this is when
monkey see, monkey do. Yeah, it's like looking. I am such a visual learner because I do have more of a creative mind that, like, if I see something, I can probably copy it.
Right.
Now, I'm not the best guitar player, but I can play a song, you know, and it feels good to do it.
But then it's almost the same sense when you did yoga, because you saw and then you copied, but then you really committed to it, and then you got like, all right, I'm digging deep. I got to learn more, and then now you created your own practice type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely. I think from my perspective, it started with a goal. I wanted to do whatever that 40-something year. I was like, I'm younger than her. I should be able to do that. Like, that is what got me started.
Yeah.
And that is what has essentially led me. That 15 seconds. That was back when Instagram videos were only 15 seconds. Okay. That's how long ago it was. And I
forgot about that.
Like, yeah, that 15 seconds was all I needed to change my life. And it's crazy to say that. It starts with a goal. If your goal is to be the best version of yourself, that's a good place to start, but you might want to hone it in, right? Because there's so many different ways that you can find that.
Yeah.
So what is it that drives you? What is it that makes you happy, you know? And I think finding mindfulness through physical activity is a great way of doing so, because we are humans. We thrive on connection. So what's better than to connect to ourselves, you know, while connecting with other people? And then you start creating this extra bit of awareness. And I always I hate sounding so, I feel like I sound pretentious when I say this, but I feel like as yogis, or as somebody that does yoga, I feel like I have more self-awareness and I am more mindful than half of the people I meet in my day-to-day experience.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, do you realize what you just said? Is that what you just said? Did you mean that?
Like, do you understand the meaning of the
yeah, and I'm somebody who thinks a lot. Like, if I'm having a very serious conversation, you know, like, it used to drive my ex-boyfriend crazy. He'd be like, why, like, what's wrong with you? Why can't you finish what you're saying? I was like, give me a second. I'm trying to process what I'm saying, because I want to say the right thing and not just be like, you know, I believe there's power in being emotionally intelligent.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, like, how many times have you done something you regret out of anger or even sadness, you know?
Sure.
And being able to tap into those emotions is something that is a very skilled thing to do. And I've read books about it, you know, and yoga's helped me with that. So I think, like, if you're trying to bridge a gap for somebody who has never done yoga and has all the excuses like, oh, I'm not flexible enough, I'm not that zenned out, like, I need something more rigorous, like, there is a yoga for everybody. If you're spiritual and you want to listen to gongs and chant Om all day long, there's a tribe for you. If you want to go get your workout on and do, like, sweat and just pour everything out into a physical practice, there is a community for you. Like, there's so many different layers to the yoga practice, and there's so many different types of yoga out there, because it has started off, you know, the very first yoga pose was this. It was just a seat. It was just meditation. Yeah. And so somebody came, you know, like, as time progressed, they're like, you know, it's really hard to sit still. Like, what if we did this and this and this, and then maybe it'd be easier. And then yoga started to slowly evolve, and then eventually it got brought to the Western world, you know, and now yoga is what we see in a classroom, but it started off as something much different.
Very simple, and then kind of got more elaborate and complex.
Yeah, and now there's like so many different types of yoga. So many different types. It's crazy. Like, if you're somebody that loves structure, and you want like a rigorous, like, sweat, and like, I want to feel some release when I'm done, take a Bikram class. Oh my God, they just clap at you. You know, they're like, change, and you change the posture, you know, like, they will, like, it's the same thing every single time you go.
I haven't done it. I need to try it.
You might like it. I hated it. But like I said, I'm more of a creative, kind of spirited person. So for me, like, I love a good structured practice, but I also love breaking away from that. Yeah, and finding empowerment through movement. And I don't know. I think a physical activity is a really good way to kind of connect the physical body with, like, that energetic self that's like, I'm more mindful now, you know, like, less ego. Yeah.
Your energy.
And because I'm not a part of a weightlifting community, or I don't go to gyms. Yeah. I remember I did a Get Fit Lab.
I don't know what that is.
It's like circuit training, you know, I don't even know if it's circuit training. I don't know what circuit training is, maybe. But basically, like, we did a bunch of, the TRX machines and box jumps and, like, all these little activities, you know, like kettlebell swings. We did ropes. And I was dying, like, halfway through. I was like, God, I thought I was so strong. And it's just, it's never over, you know? And I'm starting to realize that I used to swear by yoga. I used to be like, I don't need a gym. Yoga's my exercise. It's like, if you can put yourself into something like that, like, you have the power to go deeper. And
Right.
for me, like, because I am slowly getting back into myself, I'm trying to amplify it now. Like, how can I create better results and more, like, longer lasting results? You know, like,
Yeah.
how can I commit myself to something that will have me feeling better, not just every single day, but for the rest of my life. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like, as much as I hate cardio, I feel like I should start adding it in, you know? And it's just, I gotta get there. I want to be able to lift weights. Like I want to be able to do a squat and, like, you know, make that face that everybody makes when they do it. Well, it's powerful to watch.
For sure. I mean, like, it's kind of like this moment, like, because we live in, like, completely different worlds. And, coast to coast. Exactly.
Coast to coast, different communities. Yeah.
I'm a big advocate on people selection. I've asked you this question back at the studio, and it was like, do you think you're the son, or do you know, I think initially, do you know who the 5 closest people you associate with, and then do you believe that you're the sum of them? And I also believe that changes, because I could ask you, when you initially started your yoga journey, that you had those, like, Instagram yogis that you idolized.
Yeah.
Those are probably your top 5.
Yeah.
Even though you had, like, your own family, or you had.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't hang out with any of those Instagram yogis. I definitely wanted to be them.
But there was, like, inspiration. Did you learn from them? Because that's how you learned.
I mean, I would say I learned physically from them. And, you know, a lot of times things that they would put out, like I said, the yoga community on Instagram used to be so empowering and inspiring. They would host yoga challenges and, like, try to get you on your mat every day. And so, definitely, like, I started to learn that I was becoming everything I wanted to be by pouring all of my heart into this practice, but also by witnessing and kind of soaking in other people's positivity, to the point where I realized, like, half the people I spend time with are so negative. Yeah. Like, the more I got into my yoga, the less friends I had. Right. From the friends that I had before, of course. You know? And it took me, you know, we talked about, like, A-type personalities in the yoga community. It took me probably 2 years before I truly found, like, my own, like the people that I could be myself around without being like, I'm a yoga instructor, you know, like,
it's like not pretentious anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
we're same. We just like to do the same thing.
Let's have a glass of wine, watch Golden Girls. Why not? You know, like, and for me, like, it's really nice to be able to do that. So to find that, you know, it might take time, and I think that can be a really intimidating part of the process of finding that commitment. It's like, well, I don't really want to commit to this place because I don't fit in, or I don't feel welcomed, or, you know, and there's, like I said, there's a community out there for everybody. They just have to be willing to kind of, like, get out of their comfort zone and go with it. I mean, like, let's be honest. Has anybody ever done really amazing things in their life by staying in their comfort zone? Probably not. Yeah. I haven't met anybody that has.
Unless they're like, I could probably say, like, what's that? Steve Jobs. He was in his comfort zone being crazy, but he had, like, a lot of help, or he kind of just threw around jobs.
For sure.
He had his own niche.
I mentioned Steve Jobs in a blog post about yoga once, and I can't remember.
Did he do yoga?
He didn't do yoga. No. It was something. I think it was discipline. We were talking about discipline.
Plus
I don't know. It was definitely talking about something in regards to
his work ethic.
And his ability to, like, can put himself out there and just do it, you know. And I definitely, like, tied Steve Jobs into a yoga blog post once. So it's funny that you mention him now.
Because I could think, like, him, like Mark Zuckerberg, like, I feel like they were in their zone. They were in their, like, flow state, and they just knew exactly what they wanted to do, and they made it happen.
For sure, but I imagine there were some points during that journey that they did have to step outside of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
They probably had to do something to, you know, make it happen. It didn't just happen to them. Like, they went out and made it happen. Yeah. You know, even if they stayed in the comforts of their own garage. But yeah, I mean, there's a community out there for anyone, and if you feel intimidated, don't stop looking.
I want to bring it back to that question real quick.
Yeah,
but then,
sorry. Oh, yes. No. The 5 people.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Or if there's someone out right now who's just, like, curious, say, like, me,
Yeah.
I'm curious about yoga right now too. What should I read? Who should I look up to? Like, are
For sure.
there positive role models in the Instagram yoga
I
community?
think so. Yeah, I really do. Oh, it's like trying to think of somebody off the top of my head. You know,
So obviously you don't look up to most yogis.
I
on
don't
Instagram.
know because like I said, I believe that you should find a version of yourself that you come to idolize in a way, something that drives you and pushes you to be that person. And for me, like, I started. It literally fell into my lap, that video of that woman, you know, and now she's completely sponsored and has to say, like, wearing, you know, I'm not going to say the brand, but
Oh.
it just
I'm not going to support
it's just, there's just a big lawsuit with this brand lately. So, like, it was just so much drama, you know, through Instagram yoga community. And I'm like, I don't want none of this. This is not yoga.
Yeah.
And there was an article that was kind of like showing both sides to the lawsuit.
Okay.
And Instagram yoga, and she said it very well. She was like, I don't even have millions of followers. I'm just coming from the perspective of I used to love doing yoga through Instagram, and now it's by this, you know. And I was like, God, she's right. She's so right. Like, it was really eye-opening because, like, I had kind of felt that, but, like, she just said it. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, that's why it has changed and shifted. I think, you know, like, depending on your body awareness, you know, it's going to determine where you should go. Like, I would say for you, like, you would probably be really into power vinyasa because you do, like, you feel like, you know, I always tell people, like, in certain poses, I'm like, you know, talking about engaging your core, like, imagine that you're the Hulk and you're flexing out right now, you know, like, I will say that in a yoga class because it's a clear picture.
I do like vinyasa. I used to work at a Gold's Gym, and then one of the instructors there, I went to her class specifically for her vinyasa.
Yeah.
But I think she moved to a different location, and I haven't taken a vinyasa class since. It's more like, again, let's come to that tribe. Like, I was a part of her group, her tribe.
For sure. I mean, I would say, like, if you are very physically active and you want something that will invite a little bit more mindfulness, try power yoga. If you like structure, Bikram, same thing every time. 26 postures, 2 times through. It's the same every time.
So it never changes?
It never changes. No. So Bikram is like, it was essentially this guy he was a weightlifter. He shattered his kneecaps in a weightlifting accident, and then he started doing yoga, and he healed his body through these 26 postures.
In heat.
Okay. And so we practice in India, and that's another thing. Is like, people always argue, well, like, it's hot in India. I'm like, people are not practicing in the dead of the heat, the day, noon sunshine. Like, they're practicing inside of an ashram, probably in the morning when it's the coolest, you know, like, I'm sure it's still hot, but yeah. So the heat added is totally, like, I think more of a Western thing, but yeah, Bikram created these 26 postures. He healed himself, his kneecaps and everything, through those postures, and then started this whole, like, explosion of yoga to the point where it's so structured that if you want to call yourself a Bikram studio, you have to go through, like, the legalities of finding that, and then also you have to be certified in Bikram. Like, it's like a trademark, kind of. And now the funny thing is Bikram's been filed for so many lawsuits because of sexual assault. So no one wants to call their studio a Bikram studio anymore, but they still offer it. So you definitely have to, like, kind of seek out.
Okay.
It's very rare that you'll hear, like, a studio say, like, Bikram will not be in the title because of those lawsuits.
I see. I didn't even know that.
Yeah. Okay. He was a real not great man.
Okay.
Yeah. But he created a great practice.
Okay. Well, I guess so. Like, I think in summary, what I got out of that was, like, if you want to get into yoga, just get out and try a class? Is
Yeah.
that what you basically
Yeah,
saying?
absolutely. Like, try vinyasa if you are, again, more like physically aware and want that kind of little bit of workout. Like I said, power yoga is great. If you want something, I find Ashtanga yoga to be a little bit more of like the philosophical side.
Okay. So there's a lot of talking in there, or what?
Not necessarily, no. It's just it's also a structured practice. They have the primary series and the secondary series, and you kind of it's just very different. But to me, it's essentially where yoga began. That's what I think of it as. It's like the beginning, and also practice in India, brought over to the West Coast or Western culture, I should say. And it's not heated. You can add heat, but generally, like, you build heat internally, and it's very like the Sanskrit. So Sanskrit is a vibrational language that is used in yoga. Om is a part of the Sanskrit.
Okay.
And so even the Sanskrit for Ashtanga yoga is different. They're very, like it's a strict practice. Like, you will go in there and you'll say something like chair pose, right? Do you know what chair pose is? It looks just like a chair.
Okay.
2 feet on the ground. You're like chair pose, right?
Okay, like sideways.
And that is totally a Western name. I went into an Ashtanga place, and it's fantastic teacher. He was like, okay, show me a sun salutation B. And I was like, he was like, tell me what it is. And I was like, chair pose. He goes, it is not called chair pose. That is some Western shit. He was like, it is fierce pose. It is Utkatasana, which is the Sanskrit word for it.
Did you have to travel for this class? Or?
No, I did. Well, I mean, I had to travel to the city because I still lived in the North End.
Oh, okay.
And that was one of the things. It was an early morning, like 6 a.m. practice. And so I put it off for the longest time because I was like, I am not an early riser. Like, that is not me. That's not something I want to do. So when I went, though, I felt like I had a lot of boxes shattered for me that I was like staying inside of, and everything started to shift at that point. And I think that's what it's like when you get famous. You just needed that one person to help get you there, Right. It's like you just need that one person to inspire you. You just need that one person to connect you. You need that one person to make you think outside of the box, and God, if you should be so lucky to find that person, because sometimes, like, you have to go out and seek those people.
Right. So
yeah, go out, try a yoga class, like, sit at home, try just listening to your breath. Like, that's pretty hard to do, is just being still, right? Like, I hate sitting down and just not doing anything.
And then just think about your own breathing. I would think I'm crazy.
Yeah. And, it's definitely... it's definitely something that I think a lot of people find challenge in is trying to still the body and still the mind, because creating stillness is not easy, especially in the world that we live in today. Everybody is hustling, everybody's going, everybody's like on to the next thing, next to-do list. It's like I remember I used to take a yoga class from this one person, and she would always say at the beginning, like, don't worry about anything that happened before this class, or, towards the end, she'd be like, stay present for these last few minutes. Don't worry about your to-do list. And I'm like, you saying to-do list literally just brought me to my to-do list. So it's like, for me, as somebody who was very mindful of what I was taking in, right? Especially because choice of words. Yeah. Because as a yoga instructor, I want my students to be present the whole time. I will never draw attention outside of the room, and very rarely will I even draw it to outside of the four corners of their mat space. Like, I'm all about practicing with mirrors, but at the same time, I'm all about practicing without mirrors, because a lot of times, like, when you have a mirror in a yoga room, it's a great way to check your form.
Right.
But it's also a great way to check yourself out.
Yeah.
It drives me nuts when I see people watching their practice the whole time. I'm like, just listen to your breath. Just listen to your body. It'll go where it needs to go. Yeah. And there's been times, like, when I started to ease back into my practice after not doing it for 2 months, I remember thinking to myself, I was like, I can't even see what I look like. And I know this doesn't look pretty, but God, it feels so good. And I was modifying everything, like, I wasn't giving the full expression. Like, if I'm in a forward fold, like, my legs were not straight, like, everything was just super, super modified and very, very, like, approachable, so to speak. And I think that's another thing that comes with yoga is, like, people think they have to be flexible. They have to do exactly what the teacher says. It's like, you haven't found the right teacher yet then.
Okay.
Like, to me, if you find a teacher that tells you, like, hey, I'm going to cue you through a class, but know that everything I say is really just a suggestion. So, like, listen to your body, listen to your breath.
Yeah.
It will give you the feedback that you need. If there's something else that feels better in your body, do that.
Yeah.
And that is like, oh, you know, favorite yoga teacher ever, you know, because they're giving you the freedom to be as you are because you came as you are.
Right.
You know, and we kind of talked about it at the studio earlier. It's like every single day is a different experience.
Yeah.
Every time you step onto your mat, every time you step up to the weights, it's different.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, kind of giving that quick scan of the body, like, how can I meet myself where I am right now? Does that mean that I lift 300 pounds? Probably not. Maybe I lift 250. Then maybe see about getting it up, you know?
Yeah.
And it's no different with yoga. And so I find that there are lots of layovers when it comes to yoga and other forms of physical activity, but then there's also lots of separation.
It was like an eye-opening experience, like talking to you and Sam earlier. It was because, like, I've always, like, thought, like, in that group setting class,
Mm-hmm.
I should follow exactly what the instructor says. Because there was points in the class today where I was in my flow state, and I was kind of just like, I wanted to stay in a certain position a little bit longer, or I kind of, like, modified it to my own way.
Yeah.
Whether, like, I couldn't straighten out my leg entirely, or kind of, like, I wanted to, like, I don't know, just change the angle, but
Yeah.
it felt good to me.
And that's all that matters.
Right. And then no one really said anything. I mean, I just kept going with it, but then I kind of, like, clicked back, okay, we're going to the next movement.
Yeah.
And just follow along.
Like that. You actually made me think, too, like, if you don't have body awareness, it's probably a really good idea to find something a little bit more structured, because what
Yeah.
happens is then you build muscle memory.
Right.
And the
You built your foundation.
Yeah, and the power of repetition is what creates good form.
Yes. I completely
You know,
agree to
like,
that.
it's like I told you, the chaturanga,
Yeah.
you know, which is like essentially a tricep push-up. And when I see people with their little spaghetti arms, I'm just like, just modify it. Just build the upper body strength first. Don't hurt your low back, you know? And the only way they're going to learn that is through proper cueing, a good teacher, and then continuing
Repetition.
to come back.
Yeah.
Repetition, for sure. And so, like, I teach at a studio that offers an intro to power class. It's the same class every time you take it. It might have a little different flair to it because the teachers are different, but
Yeah.
it's the same sequence. It's the same set of postures every time. And I think I said this at the studio, like, there's power in creating movement on your own. There's power in using your intuition and the feedback that your body gives you in creating that movement. And then,
Yeah.
like, oh, actually, I want to stay here a little bit longer.
Yeah.
You know, or it feels good to bend my knees, you know, and things like that. So whenever you're new to practice, like, you can't get there without having a solid foundation, without understanding, like, if I want to do this, I should probably, like, stack my joints, you know, like,
Right.
to create a safe space for me to do that. And it just, you know, goes back to, like, where is your awareness when you when you come up with this idea of, like, I want to go to yoga? It's like, okay, why do you want to go to yoga? Is the first question I think you should ask. Like, are you going for a more spiritual practice? Maybe. Are you going because somebody told you it would really help with your anxiety and your stress? Maybe. Are you going because somebody told you it was a really, you know, like, easy
Eye-opening
workout?
experience.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah, something like anything. Like, just, again, it comes down to, like, being intentional. It's what it always boils down to. It's like coming to this idea of, like, I want to do yoga. What is my intention about wanting to do yoga?
Like, understanding your why of doing a certain activity type of
Exactly. Thinking the bigger picture. You know what I mean? So, like, whenever you go into the yoga room and maybe you feel defeated because you can't do half the stuff,
thing.
you're like, okay, well, anything you do for the first time is going to be hard, right? It's like you need to come to that understanding of being like, okay, well, my intention is this. So even if I walk out feeling this way, there's thousands of other yoga teachers out there.
Yeah.
There's, you know, at least 50 other different styles of yoga out there. Like, just coming again from that place of intention, understanding your why, and just always reminding yourself of, you know, especially, like, when you fail,
Yeah.
you know, and you're trying to pick yourself back up. It's like, why am I picking myself back up again? Oh, yeah, because I want this for my life.
Our class is not over. I got to redeem myself.
Yeah. That would be a little bit more of the egotistical response, but yeah. And I'm all about like conserving your energy, right? And that's the thing is like I talked about people being like peacocking.
Yeah.
You know, those are those egotistical people where they're not listening to anything that the teacher is saying. And even if what the teacher is saying is not something that resonates with their body, they're still like doing so much of their own thing that they're missing all the breath cues they're doing. And, you know, like you could have just done that at home. Like, why are you, it's like, even though I can do all of these crazy things on my hands, I'm not going to show up to a beginner class and start doing them.
Right.
You know, I'm not going to put myself into a handstand.
Go get your own swing and
do
it at home.
I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be respectful of the teacher. I'm going to be respectful of the environment.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I also don't, like, I'm so intentional, right? Like if I go take a beginner class, I normally practice in like a sports bra and just pants because I hate the way cotton feels on my body when I sweat. I hate it. Oh, it just drives me nuts. And then you've got to fidget all the time with your clothes. I just hate it. But when I take a beginner class, I always wear a shirt because I don't want to intimidate other people. And I find that a lot of times people that come to these beginner classes have no body awareness. Yeah. And, you know, generally speaking, like, they're not really fit. True. Or they're just
beginning their journey.
Yes, exactly. So I'm trying to be very conscientious of that, you know? So like if I'm in beginner class, I'm going to be the best student ever. Yeah. Because if anything, I'm setting an example for where these people could be. Right. You know, and just kind of always, again, knowing your intention, why you're there, like what it is that you're doing. I think that's the most important thing.
You've gave me so much information.
Yeah.
I have to process. I need to take time to process
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would love, like, when you venture into yoga back home, post about it. Let me know about it.
Definitely will. You'll see it. I wanna sum it all up with one question.
Sure.
That I'm curious about too. Yeah. You probably said it earlier in the class too, but I wanna revisit it. So with all this information, kind of like to humble you back down, I want you to tell me a story of your biggest, like, flop, fail. Not like the whole story about the job and, like, finding yoga. More like, I was trying to do this move, and then I did a backflip and landed straight on my face.
I've done that.
Any, like, funny stories come to mind? No?
Funny stories. Well, I did tell you about the belly flop. Yeah. I was in the swing upside down, and I was trying to do from a handstand and go into a down dog. So I was trying to do like a kick over, and I didn't have enough weight in my hands, or, you know, like you've been on those floors, like you could slide on those floors really easily. Like they're not really grippy unless you're like sweaty, and I wasn't sweaty, and I have the video of it, and it's so, like, it's hilarious, but also sad. Like, how hard I hit the floor, and I was like, I knew that. I, like, got up, and I was like, I knew that was going to happen. Why did I do that?
Was this, like, in a class, or you were just practicing by yourself?
No, this was practicing by myself just yesterday, actually. I have to say I've been fortunate to never demo in a class and eat shit. Like, I've been very lucky with that. And I will honestly, like, own up to, I'd be like, you guys, I don't know if it was just because you were watching me, but that was the first time I ever did that. So thank you. You know, and then people like applaud. I'm like, I love you guys. But normally my most embarrassing experiences have all been on my own, like primarily at home. Okay. Like I was trying to do a chin stand once, and I kicked up so hard, I completely rolled over on my face. My nose went up so far that it was very painful. I didn't break my nose, but I had this giant red line across my nose. Like I got a battle scar from smashing my nose into the floor.
I'm trying to conceptualize chin stand.
So like you're on your hands. Yeah, you're floating on your, well, technically you're not even supposed to be wearing weight on your chin because that can be a lot on the cervical spine and the neck. So you're on your hands, and you're like, your throat is completely exposed, and you're pressing on your chin, and your legs are straight up in the air. And I went to go kick up, and I completely like did like this weird, I guess I went that way. Yeah. And then I like completely smashed my nose, like flattened it almost. I felt like a cartoon character, you know, like I had smashed my face from putting my entire body weight on it. But yeah, I've never I don't think I have had like any really other embarrassing experiences. I broke my printer once kicking up into a handstand. I was like, oh, the printer's there, my bad. That was heartbreaking because I had just bought it.
Oh.
But yeah, I don't really have too many experiences like that. Luckily, fingers crossed. Knock on wood, it won't happen again. So yeah, I would say those happen definitely more in the beginning too.
Yeah.
You know, it's no different. You're learning your body. You're learning your limits, where you can push yourself and where you can't. And when you're fearless, you'll push yourself anywhere.
And just forget about it.
And just forget about it. Yeah. And yeah, just pick yourself up and do it again. Just all for the sake of that Instagram photo. You know? So funny.
Okay. Well,
the ego does feed you. The ego does feed you, but you have to remember to let it go at some point.
Yeah. Use it in the right area or time.
Yeah.
There's
a time and a place for everything.
There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect, clean way of saying it.
For sure.
Am I missing anything?
I don't think so. I mean, I hopefully answered all your questions.
Definitely. Whether it was here or back in the studio. And I just don't remember to recite it back here.
No big deal. Well, I really look forward to hearing about your yoga experience in the future. I'm serious. Because I know you were talking a lot about bridging the gap and like trying to remove the ego out of, you know, being in the gym or like kind of bringing more mindfulness, is that right? Into that style of exercise. And I think, you know, we talked about it in the studio, like you have your certain breath technique that really powers you up. I think showing that to people and again talking about your experience, and I'm assuming that your physical activity and lifting weights has kind of helped you show the best version of yourself, so to speak, right? So I think, you know, speaking to that is obviously a really good way of bringing that mindfulness in, making sure that you are doing everything in your power to protect them from injury and pushing themselves too far, like giving them permission to take it back a notch. And I know that's got to be really hard in the gym because everyone's like, keep going, you know?
For me, it was more like I lived through a lot of failures, so I'm going to teach you how to go through them.
Yeah.
If you
experience
them, or I want to teach you what I tried to do and was a failure and didn't work, and make you avoid that. So you want to
teach people what you learned. You want to teach people the things that you learned not to do.
Yes, exactly. Well, that on top of going through obstacles as well.
Yeah, and I mean that's definitely setting your clients up for success. I mean,
for sure.
That's if you're ever in the fitness world, whether it be through the mindful practice of yoga or lifting weights to be a bodybuilder, you know, like if you're not trying to set your students up for success and you're just thinking about yourself and what serves you, then you're not doing it for the right. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I think I've definitely taken classes where like I'll kind of see the teacher out of the corner of my eye and I'm like, are you even here for us right now? Like you just checked yourself out in the mirror. It's like, I'm serious though. And
she's going through her own checklist of like, all right, this movement.
Yeah, you know, and it's just like, I don't know. I think everybody needs to have a why. Everybody needs to have an intention. If your intention of instructing people through any physical journey is solely because it's something you love to do and that's it, it's like, okay, then tell me why you love to do it.
Yeah.
Do you love to do it because you want to inspire other people? That's a great answer.
Yeah.
Or do you love to do it because it's better than the job that you had before? You know? And it definitely, like, I think it can always start like that. Mm-hmm. But if it never evolves, then you have an issue.
Right.
You know, like I definitely, like I quit my job. It took me 2 years to quit my job to teach yoga full time. But when I went into teacher training, I went in with the idea like, I'm going to teach yoga. I'm going to quit my job and teach yoga. That did not happen like that. And eventually, like, teaching yoga became so much more than I want to show people what they can do with their bodies. It turned into, I want to show people how they can change their life.
That's a valid purpose.
Like I said, it's always evolving. Life is evolving. We are evolving. Physical journeys are evolving. Like, it's never ending. It's a beautiful, beautiful process.
And the thing about with that understanding your why, it's not just like a solidified why. It can change.
It can change.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Just like you change every day. Like
Right.
your reason why can change. And if it's not for me, if it starts to change in a direction that you don't want it to, then you have to take a step back and reassess some things, you know, like I quit my job to teach yoga full time, and then I did it. And then at the end of the 6 months, I was like, my body's falling apart. I obviously have poor self-care practices, and I need to reassess some things. And that's where I'm at now, you know, and it's like, so long ago, I was like, I'm going to teach yoga full time. And I'm like, I don't want to teach yoga full time. You know, like it's very demanding, and there are definitely a lot of positives to it, but there's some downfalls to it, you know, like I don't think I really answered that question earlier, but it was just like, you know, if you're practicing in the heat, or like, you know, you can overstretch yourself as a yoga instructor. Like if you haven't practiced and you're demoing something in class, you could hurt yourself. Or like I've overstretched my hamstring several times because I'm demoing something for my students, but I'm not warm.
Yeah.
You know, or like, again, self-care, teaching 17 classes in a week and not taking time for yourself is a great way to lose your mind and wreck your body. So I definitely like, it's just always kind of taking a moment. And that's where the mindfulness comes in. It's like understanding when those times are happening in your life to take a step back and just gaze inward, you know?
Perfect. I think this is the point where this is the point where I feel like I kind of want to idolize you. And
that's very sweet.
If anyone wants to like follow you, reach out to you, because all this knowledge.
Yeah.
So just so I don't hog you to myself, that you can give out some type of, I don't know, social media.
Yeah, for sure.
Your Instagram, so you can be Insta famous.
Oh,
like
please make me famous. No. My Instagram is actually, I used to have so much yoga on there, and now it's just a little bit more of very small tidbits of what I think is important to put out there into the world.
I think that's very powerful.
I think, like you don't have to post 2 to 3 times a day. You know, like there's times where I'll go weeks without posting, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't follow me. And, you know, like I said, I care a lot about what I put into the world. So I make sure that I take the time and the energy to put out there what I think is important. And so you can follow me on Instagram. It's just TBurnsed, TBURNSED. That's pretty much the only social media I'm on. I don't have Twitter or anything like that. Okay. I'm still trying to figure out the whole Instagram thing, to be honest. I've had it for years, and I'm like, I'm not good at it, but I'm making it work. So
I feel like as long as you're accessible to like the masses, if you're putting out good content, something that's valuable, I think you should be able to be reached in one way or another.
I think so. And you had kind of said it at the very beginning. It's like, it really resonated with me, like reaching out and being a part of the community in the way that you can, right? Is should be good enough. And that was something that I had to get over, like with my ego. It was like, okay, I'm not reaching masses, but I'm making small ripples in the pond that I'm in, and that's good enough. As long as I can reach one person, that's all I care about, you know? And I'm not saying that like I want to be the reason that you change your life. I definitely like you need to figure that out on your own. But if I can inspire you, absolutely yes. You know. I also have a website. It's TiffanyBurnsed.com. It's linked on my Instagram, and you can go there. I did the whole blog series on the 8 limbs of yoga and tried to kind of give examples of how you can apply yoga philosophy into your daily life, you know. And we kind of talked about the studio. I tried really, really hard to make it like well-rounded for somebody who even doesn't do yoga, you know. And so if you want to give that a read, you're more than welcome to. But I'm always trying to put out into the world how like there are ways to find the best version of yourself, and that should be your life goal no matter what, no matter where it is that you are going, your career path, your relationships. Like if it doesn't serve the best version of who you are, don't do it. And that's a lot harder than it seems. But that's what life is all about. It's all about figuring it out, you know?
For sure.
And the more aware you are, physically and energetically and mentally, the easier that is. So I think it helps to have not just yoga, cardio, lifting, you know, all the good stuff. for sure.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a pleasure. I got this great, well, the sun's setting sort of, but it's nice.
Until next time, goodbye.